Warning, this podcast contains heavy spoilers for not just one movie, but entire franchises. We highly recommend going and watching these movies before listening to us as a companion piece that stitches all the timelines into one creepy, crime-ridden story. There will be no more spoiler warnings. We do not break character. After this, there is no turning back. You've been warned. Hit the music.
You are talking about the nonsensical ravings of a lunatic mind.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
It's alive! It's alive!
Okay, so I'm going super corny this week.
Okay.
Why was no one sad at the Headless Snowman method?
No.
He was a snow buddy.
A snow body.
Oh, how did the Headless Chicken cross the road?
He didn't.
In a KFC bucket. Do you know what I didn't like about the Harry Potter books? It was the character of nearly Headless Nick. He was
Okay.
a poorly executed character.
God. Alright then.
What do you call an equestrian that has never received a blowjob?
A what did it never receive?
An equestrian that has never received a blowjob.
I have no idea.
A headless horseman.
Oh,
Which
why did we
leads-
see that coming?
Exactly,
It's
that leads
horseman.
right into what we were talking about.
Oh, yeah.
But before that, hello and welcome to It's Alive podcast. This is a true crime, paranormal, interstellar podcast covering unbelievable stories that sound like they were ripped straight from the pages of a Hollywood script. I'm your host, the man of many names, the outlaw Harley Ray, the bruiser bronzer, Dr. H.R. Smokenstein THC, or you can just call me Joshua Short. And with me as always is my very own scream queen, the perfect combination of beauty and brains, the gorgeous, the sexy Aimee Rose. Aimee, what's up?
So,
Amy's still sick. I don't know, did we say you were sick last week when we were doing last week's episode, or was that in one of the Patreon episodes?
I think it was kind of obvious I was sick. I don't think we needed to state
So any sniffling and coughing and stuff, it's all her, not me. I don't get sick. I'm always her.
it. Josh's going to edit it out for me. He knows what's good for him.
Well, we got two microphones now
Yeah.
again because we got a new laptop,
We
so
did.
we can
Record
mix
with
and
ease.
mess around with stuff now. Sound a little better, hopefully.
We hope.
Yeah.
Or else it's wasted. Or
Huh?
else be wasted.
Wasted more money on more equipment that's no good to me.
You hear Josh giving out.
No, we were talking about the Headless Horseman, right? Mm-hmm. And I was joking about that during the week, that we should go into the horror parody porn business. Not just parody porn business, horror parody porn. And we will start with the Headless Horseman. But the story isn't going to be about a man with no head going around on a ghost horse killing people. It is going to be a man a virgin who never got head in his life, then died, and then goes around as the Headless Horseman killing people having sex after they've had sex or after they've had head. So then you get the porno in there for the sex, and then afterwards he comes in with the horror and kills them.
I love how much thought you put into this.
It'll be like the ultimate incel slasher killer.
Of course.
Oh my god.
On
That'd
that
be
note,
awesome.
if anybody wants to listen to our Kemper episode,
I suppose it's about as close as you're going to get to horror fucking porn. Jesus Christ, the things he did to his
oh
mom's
my
head.
god, that was bad.
Would he look so nice and cuddly in Mindhunter?
I think that's the actor.
Yeah, I like him too.
No, yeah.
He was in, they did the second season of Manhunt. And the first season was where they were after Ted Kaczynski, and the second season they were working on the Atlanta Olympic bombings. And he played the character of the man who was accused of the bombing for the longest fucking time. They ruined his life.
Oh, yeah.
And he was actually a hero. He saved the day that day. And he was made out to be the villain. Like, and his life was destroyed because of
it would
it.
be after something like
And
that.
it was years and years later. Like, the guy that actually did it was kind of like one of these militia guys. And he was hiding up in the woods for years. They eventually found him. They ended up catching him in a dumpster. I think it was at the back of a KFC, eating from the dumpster. And a cop caught him thinking he was just some vagrant and he was going to push on, and realised when he saw him from the mug shots and all that stuff that shit, we're after catching the fucking Atlanta bomber. And this was a few years later, I think.
That's crazy.
So yeah, fucking mental.
Can he be arrested for eating from a dumpster?
Well, I
Or
assume
is it just
they
like you're homeless,
you know,
get out of it?
yeah, move on. You know, or I'll have to take it on downtown for a while.
I'd feel bad as a cop doing that. The guy that put the people are already like eating from a...
I remember when I used to work in a petrol station. At the end of the day, we'd throw away all our baked goods.
Yeah.
Because all the day.
Yeah.
But there would be a man that would come in and he would claim they were for his dogs, that he was just getting them to feed them to his greyhounds and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I just give it to him. I didn't really think anything of it.
Scraps,
And,
people come in for it.
then one day he came in and his kids were all over him, and he had loads of kids, but he was collecting them all in a big black bag to bring home for his kids. I felt bad for him then. And then when my manager found out, she told me I couldn't do it anymore.
Why not?
In case they got sick from it.
Sugar.
So I had to start telling them I can't give them to anymore, and I literally had to walk past them while he'd stand outside, walk over and dump them into the fucking bin. But our bins are all locked up, so it's not like you could go through them to get them.
Do you think his kids cried every night then? Because of your manager?
Oh, it's a shitty thing, alright.
It is. It's nearly as bad as... Well, no, it is actually worse than this. But you ever see the videos going around on Facebook, and it's people that work in Sephora and all these makeup shops, and they don't sell all these these makeup goods, and they're all perfectly good, like 50, 60 euro pallets, and because they haven't sold them, they have to completely destroy them. They squeeze out all the makeup. They chisel out all the powder out of the pallets because they don't want anybody else to get their hands on them if they're not being sold for money.
So exclusivity, you can't get them free at all.
It's heartbreaking watching those videos.
Fucking such a waste. Fucking hell. But yeah, do you know what? We're going to keep our intro short this week since you're a little tired and it's your week for telling a story. Even though we were saying that as well, we're going forward, we're going to try something a little
change
different.
the layout.
For the next 3 weeks at least, while we work on a big Halloween series, we are going to try and... Because we think we've been dividing our skills. Where 1 week I'm telling a story and I'm kind of doing a real story kind of... storybook kind of thing, and you get really into the nitty-gritty research and details and stuff like that. And I think that maybe that would be a better mix of us going back and forth.
Yeah.
And give us more of a chance to have time to make funny comments and have a bit of fun with it. Whereas now we're so
just relax
focused,
with it.
and it'll help us during the week work together to get the stuff together.
Definitely.
So that's what we're going to do. So instead of me telling the story and you pretending like you don't know what's going on, we're both going to know what's going on, and we're going to explain it to you, the listeners. I go into your
episodes blind 100%. Don't care about.
Well, to be fair, I have only heard this story once, so...
Is that all?
Yep, that's it.
That's mad.
So,
it's pure Halloween.
So most of what you're going to tell me here is going to be pretty much new.
Kind of new.
Like I said, I know who the Headless Horseman is from a kid and hearing the urban legends, but it was just, he was imagery. It was a Halloween imagery.
Yeah.
I didn't really know the whole story. But you're going to tell us the whole story now, so...
I am.
Let's get into it.
So the whole story is a bit more supernatural than what we would usually do here. Well, it might be a bit more supernatural. It's kind of, you can decide at the end of it.
It's the spooky season.
But exactly, that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm explaining.
Not everything's gotta be slash 'em and fucking serial killer.
This is slash 'em and serial killer.
Our intro specifically says we are an interstellar paranormal podcast. We do the horror stuff, we do the slasher and stuff, but we're gonna do aliens, we're gonna do cults, we're gonna do heists, we're going to do bank robbery, we're going to do criminals, we're going to do mobsters, we're going to do ghosts. And ghosts most of the time is, the story's a bit wild, but we're just going off of what the people that were there said happened. And Whether it happened or not is something we just have to try and decide ourselves from the evidence that's in front of us.
Exactly.
Which can be fucking hard, but that's the fun of it, isn't it, when it comes to the paranormal stuff? So, go for it, Aimee. Give us the spooky facts for the start of our spooky season.
Okay, so the reason that this story kept most of its supernatural mystery about it is because it takes place in 1799 in the sleepy Dutch village of Sleepy Hollow near New York's Hudson Bay River. So obviously at that time, anything with the faintest whiff of supernatural about it would send people into a panic. And this was no different.
So would this be about the witchy throughout the times?
I think a bit after Salem. Wasn't Salem like the late... I could be completely wrong here. Was that like the late 1600s?
But let's be fair. I mean, until they had proper electricity and all that, everyone was just because Salem happened and it was done, it didn't stop them. Still, every now and again turn around and go, "Wedge!"
Well, they turned around pretty surprisingly after Salem, like fast after Salem, and they were all like, well, we might have made a bit of a mistake like 7 years ago by...
But that was because they fucking massacred half the women in the town.
In the village.
You know? And
Back
there's the
themselves
difference
into
between
a
the
corner
odd
there.
one that might be there as opposed to, well, we have a shortage of women here now.
So one day in 1799, a carriage without its horses and a headless body were found on the road outside Sleepy Hollow. In a cornfield by the side of the road, another headless body was found belonging to Peter Van Garrett, a wealthy landlord from the village.
Ooh.
Yes. So the body found alongside the carriage was that of his son, Dirk.
Did they find the heads?
No.
Ed Kemper. He's taking him home to have sex with him again.
Unless Ed Kemper is like a couple of 100 years old.
Maybe Ed Kemper's
Vampire.
a time traveller. Ed Kemper's big enough to be Bigfoot. He could be a time traveller. I'm telling you, we're right back at it. Every time I do one of your episodes, I end up in the same fucking
Ed
place.
Kemper's not hairy enough to be Bigfoot.
Shaved Bigfoot.
He's still not hairy enough to be shaved Bigfoot.
You don't know that. You've never seen a Bigfoot.
Have you?
Yeah, Ed Kemper.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. You like the podcast? Want some more? Then head on over to our Patreon page where for just €5 a month you get up to 12 extra shows in that month, along with piles of minisodes covering fun facts from the world of horror and true crime. Each week we drop multiple shows such as Real Monsters, where we look at the inspiration behind the movie Killers, or Behind the Mask, where we take a look at the influential people and happenings in the world of Hollywood. All this, plus movie reviews, watch-alongs, and regular AMAs. That means ask me anything. You really do get a bang for your buck. And by bang, I mean like podcast. I'm not soliciting or anything. Shit. Moving on. For just €5 a month, all this could be yours. So head on over to www.patreon.com/IAApod. That's www.patreon.com/IAApod and start listening now.
So the night before they were found, Dirk and his father Peter had been travelling home from Peter signing his last will and testament, which was witnessed by his servant, Jonathan Masbeth. So he was in Sleepy Hollow at the notary's place, signing the last will and testament that night. And it was thought that the carriage must have been driven by Dirk when they were attacked. And Dirk was the first to lose his head, and Peter fleeing into the cornfield, pursued by the unknown assailant, but to no avail. As I said, neither head was ever recovered.
Yeah, I'm guessing, considering you're saying that they're after coming from signing for sorting out their will, that maybe somebody wasn't happy with what they were being left.
Maybe there's a bit more to it than that. So a week later, the headless body of a widow from the village by the name of Emily Winship was also found. But her head was never found either.
Definitely a Kemper.
3 missing heads. Did he kill men?
No, he was all women.
Alright, well, I've just disproven your theory.
Well, not that last one. And Ed worked when there was 2 other serial killers working at the same time, so he could be mixed in here with all this.
I refuse to believe that you can be Bigfoot and a serial killer at the same time.
I don't know.
Well then.
See, I thought you were going to go with, I refuse to believe you could be a serial killer, Bigfoot, and Nate Kemp all at the same time.
Threw you a curveball.
All I could think of was Man Bear Pig from South Park. If that can exist, then Kemperfoot Killer. Kemperfoot Killer.
Kemperfoot Killer. The KFK. So obviously what had happened shocked this otherwise peaceful, isolated farming community. So the news of the shocking murders spread fast, and when it reached New York City Police, it was decided that they were going to send one of their constables, Ichabod Crane, out to help.
I love his name.
Ichabod
Crane.
It sounds like a name that like you throw at like kids when you were younger. Did you know when you were kids like throwing around names to like wind people up?
Anytime I hear that name, I just think of it cartoons. I've heard that name in cartoons so many times.
That's because when we were younger, Animaniacs. Animaniacs do a version of Sleepy Hollow, definitely.
It's funny that you say that Animaniacs was the first thing that came into my head.
Yeah. Simpsons, there's loads. We would have seen it when we were younger. So Ichabod was a bit of a pain in the arse of the New York City Police. He was very scientific in his method, during a time where all he really needed was the wrong or right hair colour to be convicted of a crime. And in 1799 as well, we covered it in one of our Patreon episodes, maybe about 2 weeks ago, the Illuminati. He was just coming into the Enlightenment period, and everybody was very logical. Not everybody, people of the time.
They were trying to get out of the whole mystic
exactly.
magic.
That you have to have a method, everything needs to be logical.
It wasn't all fairies and then goblins and then ghosts.
Exactly.
And there was science.
Yeah. So he just didn't believe in any kind of supernatural. And the reason for that would be Ichabod had a pretty shit childhood. So according to him, his father was very religious and extremely strict and may have been a bit of a murderer.
May have been a bit of a... What do you mean, a bit of a murderer?
We get there. So he was known to be a bit of a violent man. His mother, on the other hand, was gentle, kind, and beautiful. So she was also known to be a bit of a free thinker and was forward thinking for her time. So she used to use exactly. So she used to use kind of like tricks and illusions to keep Ichabod entertained as a child, and that didn't sit well with the father, who is extremely religious. So he crudely murdered her in order to save her damned soul, according to him. And Ichabod was the one that found her body. Now, he'd said that the method of death used by his father was an Iron Maiden. But the Iron Maiden was never used historically.
To just run to the hills over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
She finally passed.
So
that wouldn't be a bad way to go.
The Iron Maiden was never used historically. So really, so I think the first trace of it, like being mentioned, is like in the 1800s, so late 1700s. So
it was just like a threat kind of a torture. They never actually put anybody in and closed it. No,
there's records. I think it's Spartan stories of this. Oh no, it's not. It's some Christian saint, and he was put the closest kind of thing to an Iron Maiden into a barrel that had all these nails in it, and he had to stand up straight. So if like he was going to fall asleep, and he went forward.
It seemed more like an execution method than a fucking torture method to me, to be honest with you. If I was going to use it as a torture method, I'd have it empty when you go in there like a casket, and then have a crank on the side that you could be cranking outside, and that the nails, the spike would slowly start making their way towards you. So then they're piercing slowly, and then you're going to get the information out of the people.
I feel like I've seen that in a movie.
And CIA, if you're looking for anybody to go work in Guantanamo Bay, I'm your man. I got you going. Modern day Iron Maiden.
I know we've just said that it was never used historically, and I'm not disputing the fact that that's how his mother was killed, but I'm just saying, to me it sounds like embellishment.
Yeah.
It can't be the only ever recorded use of an Iron Maiden. That's exactly it. But it is kind of odd for him because he, like I said, he was an extremely logical person, so like why embellish the story? But
maybe it was a homemade job.
Maybe it could be post-traumatic stress, because either way he attributed this harrowing incident to be part of what made him unable to believe in supernatural kind of things and made him like cling to logic.
Why?
Because his
her
mother was
attempts at
kind
magic
of...
wasn't successful.
Yeah, no, not because of her attempts. I think it's the fact that it just scared the shit out of him because his mother liked to use tricks and she was seen as a witch, and next thing he finds her dead, killed by his father. Like, do you know, that would kind of mess you up. We wouldn't want to believe in magic anymore. Do you know? So, and today's sources for the story are actually Ichabod's journals and the statements taken from townsfolk by him at the time. Obviously, him being a cop, his journal is pretty full.
Yeah.
Lots
Get
of
on
useful
here.
information.
Well, from the people who want to talk. The snitches.
Yep. So,
Snitches of Sleepy Hollow.
well, Ichabod's journal is more full of like clues. It's more like his ramblings and rantings and like the joining the dots. So anyway, Ichabod went on his way to Sleepy Hollow, and arriving there, he made notes about the village graveyard, about how the amount of sheep in the village, which was obviously the village's main source of income, how the village had one church, and about the normal amount of defences and lookout posts a village would have at the time. So the reception he said he got while walking through the village was quite frosty, with front doors and windows being shut by the village residents.
Sounds like you're reading the wrong script. That's Summer Isle you're thinking of.
Oh, it does sound like Summer Isle, except he didn't go there of his own free will. He really didn't want to go there. He wanted to stay in New York City. So anyway, upon arriving there, he learned that there was going to be a ball taking place that night in the house of Baltus Van Tassel. So Baltus was a pretty wealthy landowner and a farmer and a banker, and husband to Mary Van Tassel and father to Katrina. Mary was Baltus's second wife, his first wife Elizabeth having died 2 years prior. On entering the house, Ichabod was greeted by Katrina and Bram Van Brunt. So Katrina and Bram were engaged. I think there was more of an understanding, but they were a thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Arranged kind of marriage.
Arranged kind of marriage, yeah. And kind of he noted as well, I think maybe he kind of had suspicions when he first went into the house, but they were way off. I can tell you that now about Bram. But he noted that he was a bit of a jock. And through like any exchange there, it was extremely tense. But anyway, so after that he was greeted by Baltus and Mary Van Tassel, to whom he presented his credentials, and as soon as they found out who he was, they offered him a room. He kind of put him up there for the duration of his stay. So after he got settled, he noted then that he went back downstairs where he was introduced to the town elders. So that was Dr. Thomas Lancaster, Reverend Steenwick, Magistrate Phillips, and Notary James Hardenbrook. So the parties discussed the 3 dead bodies, and here Ichabod learned of a local legend, that of the Headless Horseman.
The 3 dead bodies being the guy that was driving the carriage, the guy that was in the carriage, and the woman afterwards.
Exactly. The widow Winship. Yeah. So according to the village elders, the horseman had made off with the heads of all these 3 people. So the legend of the horseman goes like this. The horseman was a Hessian mercenary that was sent to America during the War of Independence on the side of the English. It's said that although most Hessian mercenaries came for money, this particular horseman came for the thrill of the kill. He would ride through the battlefields on a great black war horse, chopping heads left, right and centre as he went. His appearance was said to be absolutely terrifying, having filed his teeth down into sharp points, and a pale man with a feral look in his eyes. One day during the winter of 1779, close to the village in the western woods, the Hessian, his horse having been killed, was pursued by a group of revolutionaries. He was making a bit of headway on foot until he came across 2 young girls collecting wood for firing. Signalling them to be quiet, one of the little girls had the bit of cop on to snap one of the branches to alert the revolutionaries of the Hessians' positions. The revolutionaries rushed the horseman, who gave fierce battle, slashing, dismembering and decapitating. But the revolutionaries were too many in number, and finally they cut the Hessian down and decapitated him with his own sword. So Baltus, according to Ichabod, then told him that the western woods is still haunted 20 years later by the Hessian, and not a place many men would dare to venture. And that by burying the Hessian that day in the woods, they had planted a seed of evil.
So what, his body was buried in there, and that was it? He had haunted that.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, standard shit for haunting.
Standard shit, yeah. So obviously the village elders put great stock into the legend of the horseman, and the Reverend Steenwick in particular handing Ichabod a Bible and told him that in the case of the Headless Horseman, this is the only book that he would need. So Ichabod had a quick flick through the Bible and he noticed that there was a family tree on the front of the Bible. Kind of, they always, the family Bible, you always had your family tree on the inside back then. And he noticed that Van Tassel, so Baltus Van Tassel, was actually related to Peter Van Garrett, the guy that got his head cut off with the last will and testament.
Right.
So they'd be effectively cousins, like there wasn't much between them at all.
Okay.
So, according to Ichabod, although the village elders looked absolutely terrified in the room that night talking about the headsman, nearly everybody in the room also looked a tiny bit shifty.
So, what he couldn't really tell if they were afraid because they didn't know if he was going to believe him, or if and they were up to something, or if they were genuinely just afraid.
I think that they were afraid that they were up to something and they were going to be found out, and they were afraid of the Headless Horseman.
Yeah.
So I think it was equal measures guilt and equal measures like there's something going on. Like we'll get into it, like, but they like Ichabod knew like straight away. There was
So
something.
before all this happened, to have like a haunting story happen, was it just a thing of a haunting story came up because of his legend of taking people's heads off when he was alive, or had people disappeared in there over the years?
No, I think it was purely
because
yeah.
he was so ferocious as a warrior back in the day.
Oh
like,
yeah.
He had to be still haunting the place, taking heads.
That's it. Like he was known for like his kill count on the battlefield. Like so, the legend was going to keep growing. And anybody that has that kind of bloodlust, people are going to think that they're in league with the devil.
Yeah,
like
I get it.
So the next day, a horseman with his head apparently came into the village and to alert the town to the fact that the Headless Horseman had struck again. And this time it was Jonathan Masbeth's turn to lose his head. Now, if you've been paying attention earlier, Jonathan Masbeth was the servant of Peter Van Garrett and had witnessed his last will and testament on the evening of Van Garrett's death.
So he was the witness.
He was the witness to the will.
Okay.
So at the crime scene where it was Masbeth's decapitated body, and again his head was taken, nowhere to be found. From examining the crime scene, Ichabod deduced that the assailant was on horseback, and he took Masbeth's head clean off the shoulders in one swoop. He also noticed from the wound that it was cauterized as if with a hot sword blade, but there was no blistering or scorched flesh present.
So what was he saying? He heating up the sword before he got to the head?
Yeah, but if it was a hot sword, there should be burnt flesh and blisters.
Okay.
But like you can tell by the bullet clotting if it was cauterized. So the flesh is stinky.
Obviously there was a way of doing it. We just can't.
Obviously there was a way of doing it.
Yeah. Someone was ahead of their time back then.
Well, again, you can decide later. So Ichabod attended Masbeth's funeral, and there he met Masbeth's son, young Masbeth. So young Masbeth told Ichabod that he wanted to help him avenge his paw, basically. So he was young enough, but Ichabod kind of realising that help manually and with local information and local history would be kind of a good thing. He agreed, and he told him he could take up quarters with him while he was at the Van Tassel's household.
And what age was this kid?
He was about 14, 15.
Yeah, small back then. That would have been about working age.
Oh, he'd probably been working since he was like knee-high to a grasshopper. Anyway, Magistrate Phillips gave Ichabod a little nugget of cryptic information after the funeral. So he kind of called him to one side, according to Ichabod, and told him that Masbeth was not the 4th victim, but rather the 5th great victim. So there was 5 victims in 4 graves.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So there's one we don't know about.
Yeah. So I'm sure you can probably guess from that yourself, 5 victims in 4 graves. But the next morning, just before dawn, we'll go into it now, young Masbeth and a few of the townsmen undertook the unenviable task of exhuming the 4 victims' graves. So when the widow Winship was brought back to the surface, Ichabod noticed a stab wound to her stomach. So he commandeered Dr. Lancaster's office and carried out a post-mortem on the widow. And he noticed, like Mazbeth, the neck wound had been cauterized, but the horrific theory that he'd been working on was proven true. The widow was pregnant at the time of her death, and the horseman came for the baby too.
Nasty. Do you think he took the baby's head and left the body, or did he just took the whole baby?
I don't know. He didn't go so far. I was wondering the same thing, but he didn't record that. But she was 100% pregnant. So the only thing that he could deduce at that time was that they were dealing with a madman. That evening... What? No shit.
No shit.
That evening, Ichabod was travelling home to the Van Tassel's house, where he was chased by a headless horseman carrying a carved pumpkin in his hands. Galloping after Ichabod, the rider threw the pumpkin head at Ichabod, knocking him off his horse.
See, that would be the most common version of the Headless Horseman I know. He had no head, but he had a pumpkin on his head. That's kind of how... That's why I thought we had the jack-o'-lantern pumpkins was from that story.
Yeah. But it would be cool if it wasn't that version of the Headless Horseman is always just Brom dressed up.
Dickhead. Asking the prick.
So he knocked Ichabod off his horse by throwing the pumpkin at Ichabod, and so obviously he was a bit shaken after that, but he has an entry in his journal about this because he was pretty pissed off at Brom at the time, so just kind of
no
venting
shit.
into your diary. He said that he could hear Brom and his friends laughing kind of just around the corner.
Oh, you got pumpkined. Oh, awesome.
Pumpkins. Nice. So obviously quite shaken on returning home, instead of going straight to bed, he decided to make himself a nightcap. But he was not the only one in the house that was unable to sleep that night. So Katrina Van Gard was awake in the drawing room reading, and Ichabod took his chance to kind of get a tiny bit more information in a nice way.
Oh, a tiny bit more information. That's what you were going to say. We were going to take your chance to get the leg over.
So here Katrina tells him that her mother died of a brain fever about 2 years ago, and that the present Mrs. Van Tassel, Mary, was her mother's nurse during her sickness.
It's a brain fever, like brain cancer or something?
I don't know. Oh, brain fever. Is that not like malaria or something?
No idea.
An old word for malaria, maybe. So Ichabod asked Katrina why no one had told him that the Van Garets were related to the Van Tassels, and if it was a secret. But he was told that nearly everyone in Sleepy Hollow was related to each other. The land that the Van Tassels lived on now, Katrina told him, was once Van Garret land, but was given to her father. Apparently, Peter Van Garret gave him an acre of land and a broken down cottage. Baltus worked hard and eventually elevated them to where they are today. Then she gave Ichabod a book that used to belong to her mother that was kind of full of spells and charms, and he kind of scoffed at the idea when he kind of noted that he'd keep it because just in case. Well, no, he never said it, but his own mother, just in case. I think it was because of what was going on at the time, and yeah.
I wouldn't mind when he's going on about, why didn't you tell me about him being related? He's obviously from a city, because if you're from any small town, city, any small town, village or anything, especially back in those days, everyone would have.
Oh, yeah. You know? I think for Ichabod as well as everything, because he was like, he wanted everything to be done to this logical kind of method. Every little detail kind of counted for him. Yeah. So the next day on his way through town, according to Ichabod, he saw Reverend Steenwick, Dr. Lancaster, Hardenbrook and Magistrate Phillips arguing. So Ichabod followed Magistrate Phillips as he looked like he was going to be leaving town, travelling with a full wagon. So Ichabod cut him off and confronted him, and Phillips admitted to Ichabod that the widow had admitted to him that she was pregnant when she came to him for advice. He also knew the name of the father, but before he could give Ichabod any more information, a horseman came galloping right through the night from the western woods behind Ichabod, knocking Ichabod to the ground and sliced through Magistrate Phillips' neck. The horseman took off into the night, holding Magistrate Phillips' head high up, impaled on its sword.
Oh, he was just want to get away and go on the lam when he gets caught.
Exactly. So you can kind of see from his journal at that stage that Ichabod was absolutely shocked to his core. Like, he was a perfectly sane and logical man, but everything that the townsmen had told him was true. So, you know,
Yeah,
he
I
had
have a
actually
theory.
seen this visibly with his own eyes.
I have a theory. If it's not supernatural, because of the time this could just be someone with like a tight black hood on their face in the dark riding.
Oh, yeah,
No.
could be.
Possible. I don't
Possibly.
know.
So after he kind of settled himself, I think he fancied a bit of grave digging again. And Ichabod decided that the best course of action would be to dig up the Hessian soldier. Just to see what was going on there.
Why not? Sure.
Yeah, just to see. I think it was more to see, like, if it was desecrated, is there anybody kind of weird, witchy for the time?
I suppose as well, if he's one of the kind of pioneers of this autopsy kind of style, you know, he's going to
Ichabod
find stuff
Crane
that
was
other
known
people...
to want to autopsy absolutely everything in New York City. That's why he was a
That's
pain
what
in
I'm
their
saying.
backside.
He'd pick up on stuff that the original doctor didn't, so you might as well dig
Exactly.
it back up and have a quick look.
Yep. So Ichabod and young Masbeth go in search of the horseman's grave and in the Western Wood, and they find that the horseman's head is missing from its grave. So it's literally just...
Oh, the horseman, like the original guy.
Oh yeah, I know.
Someone
I
picked
know
him up.
it is a headless horseman, but the grave. There's no skull in the grave.
Oh.
So that night, the horseman claimed its next 3 victims. This is kind of sad because there's a kid. Yeah. So the headless corpses of the town midwife Beth Killian, her husband, who he's just been recorded as Killian. We don't know his first name, and their son Thomas, aged about 5. So on examining the crime scene, Ichabod noted that the door had been knocked clean off its hinges, and the 3 clearly put up a fight with floorboards seemingly ripped up throughout the house.
From what we've seen so far, it seems like, you know, like we said, there's like a little bit... If it's not supernatural, there's a connection here to somebody's will. And then you start going on about people being pregnant and midwives and all that being killed off and all that. So if there's a possibility that somebody's knocking off witnesses, why'd the kid have to get it? He ain't going to be taught. He's not going to know anything.
Yeah, and when I go into the link with everybody, I mean, like, it's not cut and dry. It's just my own theory.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So a few days later, the Van Garrett's servant, not the Van Garretts because they're all dead. The Van Tassel's servant girl, Sarah, went missing. No body, no head, just missing. At the time, Ichabod reasoned in his journal that the poor girl may have just fled out of fear of the horseman because she was young enough.
Well, why not? Get
Yep.
the hell out of there. That's what I always say. If there's a serial killer in your area.
Just get the fuck out. So next, Ichabod decided that it was time to pay the notary Hardenbrook a visit, which I am very surprised that he had not called there earlier, because if he was that logical, the first place I'd be looking was the last person, one of the last people that saw Van Garrett alive, which would be the person that notarized his will.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
So he made his way to now Notary Hardenbrook's place, and when he arrived there, Hardenbrook was apparently in an awful state, hiding and babbling about the horseman. He was scared out of his wits.
Everybody that's been involved with this will so far is wrong bride. If I was him and, like you said, being the last person to fucking talk to him alive,
Oh, he's next on the list.
I would have been first out of that village. Fucking hell.
So Ichabod asked to see Van Garrett's will. And when he had a look at the will, it named Emily Winship as Peter Van Garrett's inheritor. Included along with the will was a marriage certificate. Obviously, this was the piece of information that Ichabod was missing, and the pieces just started falling into place. So, Peter Van Garrett got the widow pregnant and married her. The will and testament then, that was signed the night before he died, and that left everything to the night that he died, that left everything to the widow and her unborn child.
Okay.
So obviously, if the widow and her unborn child are out of the way, the next in line will be Dirk, the other son.
Right.
Okay.
So Dirk's doing all
Dirk, I hate that name. Yeah, but Dirk. No, not Dirk, because Dirk got his head cut off as well at the start.
Oh, yeah.
He was, yeah. So Reverend Steenwick is involved because he performed the marriage. So that's how he knows about everything. Dr. Lancaster knew about everything because he would have looked after Emily when she was pregnant.
Okay.
Magistrate Phillips gave them the protection of the law, and obviously Notary Hardenbrook concealed the documents, and Jonathan Masbeth, that has his head cut off, witnessed the will, so he would have also known that Emily was pregnant.
So this has to this isn't supernatural. This just has to be somebody pretending to be a headless horseman to get rid of a lot of witnesses to gain the money and the inheritance.
Could be.
That's how it looks to me.
It's also, yeah. There is a legend around. I'll go into the legend again towards the end after I go through kind of the more logical kind of stuff, and then we can kind of round it back up and see. I like to think the legend is true. That's what I thought. So Beth Killian and her family were killed probably as a safeguard. She was the town midwife. She would see the women in her home, so it's very likely that at least Beth knew of Emily's secret. So if Emily was seen in the house, if the husband was in the vicinity, if the 5-year-old was in the vicinity, they'd have known that they could have picked up on it. It was small houses, everybody was in close quarters. So whoever targeting the village elders was the person who standed to gain the most from the vanguard's death, and that at the moment was shaping up nicely to be Baltus Van Tassel.
I love that name.
Baltus
Van Tassel.
Another wrestler name.
Definitely.
So,
making his way to the ring. Baltus Van Tassel.
So Ichabod.
Lots of good porno name.
Yeah. He brought the will and testament back with him to the Van Tassel's house as evidence, and then that night they heard banging downstairs, in the downstairs of the Van Tassel's house. So himself and young Masbeth snuck down the stairs and found a hooded figure sneaking around at night on the way out of the Van Tassel house. Managing to stay out of sight, he and Masbeth followed the hooded figure, who turned out to be Lady Van Tassel, who snuck out to have a bit of fun with Reverend Steenwick. Ichabod found the Reverend on top of Lady Van Tassel, who sliced into her hand and smeared her blood on the back of Steenwick. She was getting a bit kinky.
At least he wasn't going around like the other priests with little boys.
Yeah. Just with married women.
Or was he?
Trying to put all the pieces into place, Ichabod went to retrieve the will and testament, but he found that these had been taken most likely by Katrina. So when he confronted Katrina, she admitted to Ichabod that she had taken and burnt the will and the marriage certificate, so Ichabod would not be able to accuse her father of any wrongdoing. Ichabod then decided it was time to speak with Mary Van Tassel, who told him that she had actually seen him spying on her and Steenwick and made him promise not to tell Baltus. Shortly afterwards, Ichabod learned from Baltus that Notary Hardenbrook had hung himself out of fear of the horseman, and also that the Reverend Steenwick had called a town meeting in the church that evening on the back of the notary being found hung, because things were getting out of control.
And it would have definitely have been a hang of him killing himself.
Oh yeah,
Whoever was killing him would have taken the head with him.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So apparently Baltus had warned Ichabod that at the meeting that night everybody had intended to speak against him, because he was kind of seen as a bit of a failure, hasn't gotten the ball rolling at all, like on the way to finding.
Yeah, nothing's been done here. They still think there's a ghost with no head flying around the place, cutting people's heads off, but this fella in the meantime is just digging back up the bodies.
Oh yeah, he's making matters worse, like throwing skeletons around the place. That evening, while the village was gathering at the church, waiting for the town meeting to begin, so everybody was there. Basically, Ichabod was there, the whole village was there, except for Baltus. He came galloping up on horseback, shouting for Katrina and shouting that the horseback was after him. According to Baltus, he had gone to find Mary to hurry her along for the town meeting, and he had found her picking arrow flower, seemingly to bind the wound in her hand. Finding her, he also found the dark shadow of the Headless Horseman approaching from the edge of the western woods.
Oh, so she's getting it.
So from what we can tell, as far as Baltus was concerned, at that particular moment in time, Mary was dead. Yeah.
So that's his second wife gone.
That's his second wife gone. And hot on Baltus's heels, according to him, was the Headless Horseman himself. So everybody rushed into the safe space of the church in order to protect themselves from the horseman, because he cannot enter consecrated spaces. So the scene inside the church was one of pure chaos. Steenwick, turning on Baltus, started shouting at him that he was the one that the horseman wanted, so obviously they needed to throw him out of the church. The townspeople were breaking windows and shooting into the night, but to no avail. Dr. Lancaster was whacked over the head with a cross by the Reverend Steenwick just after he appeared to start to confess about all this pregnancy.
So he was about to give away the conspiracy, is it?
Yeah, to Baltus. From what I can tell, Baltus was completely in the dark about the widowmanship.
Okay.
Yeah. The Reverend then was actually shot dead in the panic within the church.
Oh.
Yeah, and the panic culminated into, now take this. This is how do I explain this? I think Ichabod had a penchant for kind of gory things, because first of all he's talking about the Iron Maiden. Now Baltus definitely did die, but I don't know if this is something that was possible. Okay. It sounds like he was a bit of a whale. So he's basically he was lampooned basically.
Okay.
Yeah, through the window of the church. So it was a bit of fence was thrown into the window of the church, and there was rope attached to the fence.
Okay.
So once that struck Baltus through the stomach, I suppose the rope could have been attached to the horse. He was pulled back out.
And
of
you
the
say
church.
fence, no, it's like a steel fence, so it's not like a wooden picket fucking
No,
fence.
it's not like a picket fence. It's wooden. It's wooden, but it's substantial wooden.
Okay.
Like it's
Like a
not
stake.
like a stake, not fence. A stake.
Okay.
Okay. And so he was found outside after everything had kind of died down, also without his head. Obviously. So with all the elders now dead and Katrina in a state of shock and Ichabod disgraced, having failed to solve the mystery, he packed up to leave Sleepy Hollow. But while leaving...
So he just left the place worse off, and then he's like, I'm off. Good luck with it. I tried. See you later. Horses, your problem, no.
I think Ichabod might have had when he went back to New York was that he might have put Katrina forward.
What, the killer?
That maybe went out. I'd say if in his head she might have had an apprentice, because at this moment in time Katrina is after inheriting the lot.
Yeah, and she did it, and he caught her getting rid of the evidence. So.
Yeah.
Okay, it's honesty time. We have a confession to make. We suck at socials, no good at Insta, can't send a tweet or an X or whatever that super villain looking motherfucker is calling it now. Stick to your space cars, Elon. But we know you want to chat. You want to be kept updated. You want to be alive all the goddamn time. So we're getting down from the antisocial soapbox and giving this a try. So come chat to us on Insta and Twitter at AliveAlivePod, or hit us up by email at itsalivealivepod@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. This is a project. It's still a work in progress, and we just want to give you more what you like and less of what you can't stand. So give us a like, give us a follow. We'll always hit you back, and we'll always try to reply to everyone. So come say hi. We don't bite. Well, at least Aimee doesn't. And she keeps me well fed, so you got nothing to worry about. Now, back to the show.
Oh yeah, so while he was leaving the doctor's office where they were carrying out the post-mortem on the dead bodies from the day before, including the body of Mary, who was being carted in through the door of the surgery as Ichabod was passing. Ichabod, as astute as ever, noticed that the wound she had given herself on her left hand was the last time he saw it on her right hand.
Oh, so the body had the wrong cut in the wrong place.
The body, yes, yeah. So obviously being like, feck this, maybe I should just have a small look at it, he demanded to inspect the corpse, and he noticed that the wound that had been inflicted was a post-mortem wound. So there was no blood flow, no clotting, no evidence of healing at all, and the wound on Mary at this stage should have showed at least some signs of starting to heal.
So she faked her own death. So it's her. She's the one trying to get the inheritance, the second wife.
I did say that she was a nurse.
But who's she using as the headless horseman then? Who's helping her out?
See, this is where it kind of takes two turns. It could be paranormal. like the legend goes, or in my head, she either A, had an accomplice or was schizophrenic. I'll go into why. Now I'm going to leave it just at that. Just at that, not just schizophrenic, but I'll go into that a tiny bit more in a few minutes, because I don't think she could have been the. I know she couldn't be the Headless Horseman herself, but she had
because her husband saw him, the Headless Horseman, sneaking up behind her.
Yeah, but the husband never stayed long enough to see her get her head cut off.
But she still couldn't have been the Headless Horseman.
She couldn't, so she could have had exactly. Having said that,
would have had to have been an accomplice.
Yeah, but having said that, if the seed of a legend is already there, and you're going to be like thinking about like the horseman, the Headless Horseman, possibly popping up, is all you need at that stage on a windy, dark night, a scarecrow on a horse.
Yeah, maybe.
Do you know, I'm not saying I'm just saying,
agree with you.
You know, like you said before, there's electricity. I mean, like, my grandmother thought they saw an alien in like the 1940s and made her dad like drive the whole way back out the country road, and it ended up being a green post box, like. So I mean, deducing that the body must be of the missing servant girl Sarah, Ichabod returned to the Van Tassel's house to warn Katrina that her stepmother might not actually be dead. So he found young Masbeth there, who alerted him that he had seen the seemingly resurrected Mary drag Katrina to an old mill located on the Van Tassel's land. According to Katrina, when his stepmother brought her to the mill, she confessed, or rather boasted, about how she had killed Sarah, the servant girl, taking her head off with an axe. She told her that when she was younger, she lived with her father, her mother, and a sister in a cottage on the Van Tassel land. But when her father died, they were evicted, and this cottage and the land is the very same that was given to Baltist by Peter Van Garrett. So this caused the two sisters and their mother to have to live in the western woods. And all seems pretty sane and a little sad so far, until she told Katrina that she was the little girl 20 years ago in the legend in the western woods that gave the Hessian soldiers' location away.
Oh.
And that she now commanded his headless corpse.
If I'm the Headless Horseman, I'm not going to be helping the girl that got me headless to begin with. She can go get fucking her own fucking dirty work.
To finish my sentence, because she possessed his head.
Ah, bitch.
Mm-hmm. So she also confessed that she was the one who slowly killed Katrina's mother. So she poisoned her slowly while she nursed her in order to insert herself into the marriage bed.
Oh my god, she would have fit in there with Annie Wilkeston as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got fucking crossovers, callbacks coming all over the place these days.
Then, according to Katrina, Mary started ranting that the horseman was on its way and that Katrina would be his next victim. So with Katrina out of the way, obviously Mary was going to inherit everything, including everything that was once her family's. So Ichabod and young Masbeth rushed into the mill to save Katrina, and the three, not wanting the chance to actually, bump into the horseman, they decided to climb the mill and made it safely back outside. So officially, the mill burned down that night when Ichabod had the good sense to flick his oil lantern into the mill.
Okay.
And officially, Mary was probably burnt down with it, because she was never seen and she was never heard from again that night, and neither, for that matter, was the horseman.
Do you think this is why, going forward, that serial killer women just generally stuck to poisoning their husbands and family, as opposed to going through all this hassle?
Women have been poisoning people for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. If she
poisoned the wife, she could have just done the same thing to the husband and the daughter, and
True. Yeah.
And they were all contagious and caught the fucking shit off each other.
True, but they had ways of doing postmortems, like some of your organs that turn back from different poisoning.
They didn't pick it up with the mother, so
that's true.
Just saying.
That's true. So was this actually like a batshit crazy revenant haunting that was doing his bidding for his living master, or was this the work of a schizophrenic, grave-robbing psychopath? Well, the legend that surrounded what happened that night is that the three fled into the mill, or fled the mill into the western wood, being chased by the horseman. When in the woods, they were set upon by Mary Van Tassel. Ichabod managed to steal the head from Van Tassel, which was hanging on her horse, and he threw the skull to the horseman, who had now caught up with the three. Mary, for her part in the Hessian slaying, was dragged back with the horseman to the depths of hell once he was happy enough that he had his head back. So if you ask me, Mary was... Alright, I would love to believe that legend. I think it's class.
So that's the legend, that's the urban legend ending, whereas the other legend is that she burned inside and her and her accomplice burned to death in this mill. But the...
You see, I don't know about the...
They all went to hell.
Yeah.
Did they find the heads?
I never found the heads. So I'd say if she had an accomplice, it was the Reverend Steenwick.
Okay. Why do you think that?
So, because she was already having sex with him.
That's true.
He didn't die until he was shot in the church. He killed Dr. Lancaster, so we know that he's...
And was he the guy that was about to confess?
Dr.
Or
Lancaster.
he was the guy that killed the guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So he's already killed someone. He could have been the hooded figure that came up behind.
That would make the most sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if he was shot, then how was he in the mill at the end? Or again, is this just because urban legend, Chinese whispers, all that kind of
This
shit?
is urban legend. I would say Ichabod never said in his journal, he's very specific in his journal, he's never actually said...
He just said he was on
on his way, that's it. So it sent them into a panic. Same way, kind of the illusion that, oh, well, he's going to think because he's seen the horseman that I'm going to have no head now in a few minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'd say Mary was an absolute psycho. She was manipulative. She was vindictive. She had obviously had the accomplice. Do you know what? I genuinely, that seems like the most logical.
Sounds like the most logical, but not the most fun. Let's
Not
stick
the
with
most
the
fun.
urban legend when we're telling it to everybody else.
Exactly.
She was torn and brought to the pits of hell by the man she had decapitated.
Yep.
Sounds awesome.
I just think they have sex every night.
Huh?
I think they have sex every night.
Just like Abe Kemper. And if you want to hear more about Abe Kemper, go to our Patreon page right now and check out our episode on him on Real Monsters. It's starting to be a bit of a back catalogue there now. We got about 8 episodes of Real Monsters up. About 8 episodes of Behind the Mask. All of our mini-sodes go up there first before they go anywhere else. On top of the main show being ad-free and a day early as well. And I think people have been checking out our latest mini-sodes where we do the Creepypasta Crypt, where Aimee tells scary stories or gives you information about weird cryptids and stuff like that. That's been doing pretty well, and that's on all our social medias, so keep checking that out. We're going to be releasing 2 a week, Monday and Friday. Keep it checking out, and we have our mini-sode on Saturday as well, so we're just pumping that shit out. Keep it going. If you keep listening to us and we keep talking, you just have to pay attention. That's the idea.
Yep.
Okay. Alright, next week we are in the spooky season, and next week we are starting a big series.
We are.
That will take at least 3 episodes. Possibly 4. It's going to be a special one. We're going to be working together on it, so hopefully this will work out. Or else you'll hear news reports of us killing each other during the week. And that'll be the end of the podcast. See you later. Bye. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.